Hey guys! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jackie and I am the owner and creator here at Denwood Designs. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make one of those template wraps that you see a lot of people now are using double-sided adhesive to do these, and I am using mine with a stencil vinyl, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this. There's a couple of different ways. I find that these are really therapeutic for me, so they're not something that I tend to create a lot of, so time is not necessarily of the essence for me when I do these. These are usually like a little project that I want to do for myself. I usually do them quite late and just enjoy the process of using the Mod Podge and just doing the glitter one by one. Definitely there are faster ways to do that, and I will be getting in some adhesive tape, the double-sided adhesive, and I will show you how to do those, and they are much faster for sure. So in the meantime, I'm going to show you guys how to do this. Not everyone has the double-sided adhesive tape and not everybody loves it, so this is just another way to create that same look. And in the spirit of Valentine's Day, I thought I would do the heart-shaped pattern, and all of the items that I've used in this video will be linked in the description box below, and I will also include a link to the file that I used as well that you can purchase on Etsy. So I hope you love this video. If you enjoy my content, please be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified every time we upload a new video. And thanks so much for watching. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we're starting off with a 20-ounce skinny tumbler. This is from DAT Merchandise, and I have sanded it and spray painted it a flat white. And we're going to take a sheet. So the template that I'm using is from Bless Her Art on Etsy, and I printed it as a print file, and that way I'm pretty visual, so this is what worked best for me to kind of nail down my palette. And I knew I wanted to go with a navy blue, a rose gold, and then like a kind of a merlot, and a lighter shade of like a warm-ish gold. Kind of, I think that one's called smoky quartz or something like that. So in order to kind of make this make sense for me, it was easier for me to color in so I could make sure that each of my colors matched up, because when you fold the tumbler or fold the design all the way around, you'll see that it all matches up. So I wrote my legend on the back of the piece of paper, and this is basically what I kind of came up with. Now those colors don't exactly reflect what I'm using, but it's what I needed. So there you could see I was using Hello Sailor, Merlot, a rose gold, and then this smoky quartz. And then this is the little bottom part, and I basically did the same thing and just made sure that I had it so that I could fill it in to make sure. So this is what I mean by when you wrap the tumbler or wrap the design all the way around the tumbler, you have your pieces that match up. So it's really important to make sure that all of your colors are bang on and that it all makes sense. So once I was pretty happy with that, I was ready to go. So I went ahead and printed the template out onto I use Oracal 6, I can't remember if it's 631. I think I show it here in the video as well. So you're going to need some paintbrushes, various sizes. I wasn't really sure with some of the detail what sizes I would need, so I kept my little paint bucket close by so that I could grab something in the event that I needed it quickly. This is just Mod Podge, straight up, no mix, no nothing. And this is the Aura mask that I am using, 813 masking film, and I just use it. It's cheap and it's really easy to use, and I'm not wasting any vinyl. You'll also need some complementary colors for your Mod Podge as well. So once I've got the template all printed out and sized, and I think the size for mine was about 8.15 inches tall by 9.173 inches across. You'll have to measure your own tumbler because that's just what mine was. And again, I'm using a skinny, straight bottomed tumbler from DAT Merchandise. So once the design is all printed out, we're going to quickly weed the side here. And then we're going to put a piece of transfer tape across it. And the transfer tape I'm using is just contact. I really like it because it is supple, meaning it's soft, so I get a little bit more flexibility and I get way less bubbles when I use this stuff. So you'll peel back about an inch, 3/4 of an inch, something like that, and line it up with the edge of your decal, and make sure that your edges are very, very straight. And this will really help you out if you take the time to do this now. This will really help you get the wrap on the tumbler very straight. So once that's on there, you're going to peel back just a small section at a time and smooth it out. And I'm just using my little scraper tool to make sure I don't have any bubbles, and just get it all lined up on there really, really nicely. And then once we've got that all on there, we're going to trim off the bottom so that it's as close to the actual template as possible. And then I trimmed off any excess on the sides as well. Now I'm using this little T-square kind of triangle thing. It stands up like you can see there. And what I'm doing is I'm going to stand that flush against the tumbler. It's kind of hard to show you in here from this angle totally, but you kind of get the idea of it here. Nice and flush against the tumbler at the bottom. And then I'm just using a pencil to draw a line straight up the tumbler. And then I'm going to use a piece of masking tape to mask that off. And that's the line that I'm going to use to butt the vinyl right up next to, so that I make sure that this is starting straight. And again, you want to take the time to do this. This really, really, really helps in getting your tumbler wrapped straight. So if you do struggle with that, those are a couple of the tips that I use for myself. So I'm just going to trim off any excess because it does kind of get in the way when you're wrapping your two ends together. So I just get rid of that, and then we're ready to apply. So same as when we're applying the transfer tape, we're just going to peel back the edge about an inch from the back of our stencil. And if you get a piece that lifts like that, just kind of crease it and it just lays right back down. You don't get any movement, which is lovely. And then once I'm happy with that, I just roll it back, try to keep it fairly straight there. And then you want to make sure you've got it lined up so that your design is on there straight and right side up. So then, matching with the bottom and the top of the tumbler and that piece of tape for guide, we're going to go ahead and place the leading edge of the template right on there. So once I'm happy, I think I've got the top pretty good there, and I just need to adjust the bottom here really quick. So before I go ahead and kind of do my final placement, I just adjust so that I know I'm pretty happy with that. And now this is what works best for me. Once I've got it on there, I'm going to flip the tumbler over. And I'm going to peel back just a little bit more. And I'm going to keep my right hand anchored really firmly on the tumbler, and I'm just going to roll it. And I'm only pulling back like an inch at a time. And I really pull back on that tumbler nice and snug. And this allows me to kind of watch the top edge and the bottom edge of my tumbler so I can see if I get off course at all before it gets too crazy, and then you're able to readjust it. And this is a pretty forgiving template to work with. So if you do have a little bit of, you know, difference between your edges. This one was pretty good, but I think I had one little spot where it was just a little bit off course. That's really easy to correct as you go forward, so not too big of an issue there at all. And then once I'm pretty happy with that, we'll just make sure there's no bubbles and that everything is nicely smoothed down, and then we'll go ahead and peel back that transfer tape. So we're pretty happy with that. And now I'm going to take a black Sharpie marker and I'm going to reference my kind of my little template sheet here where I've got everything colored in. And I'm going to go ahead and mark off on there, starting with the darkest color first. We always want to start when you're doing tumblers like this or any of the stained glass or paint by number ones. You want to start with your darker color first, because the darker will get into your lighter and then we'll make a mess. So this is what I find works best for me. So once I'm pretty happy with that and I've got the B marked for all the blue, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start peeling up very carefully all of those little spots. So I find that just using, you can use tweezers, or these ones are just like, I think they're a Cricut one actually, and they've got like a little hook on the end there, and I just find that that's easiest for me to just sort of grab that one edge, and then I use my fingers to pull the rest of the way up. So I'm just looking to lift kind of that top corner, and then I do the rest usually with my hand. All the way around. And I just keep referencing my photo if I'm not sure I'm missing something. And I had a little tiny piece here kind of lift, so it was easy to pop that right back where it belonged. And right here you can see I've got a little bit of a lap, and that's pretty easy to fix. So once all of those colors are done, I've got a little tiny cup. I've got some ultramarine blue. This is a Liquitex acrylic paint, and I'm going to fill up my little cup with some Mod Podge. Don't need very much. And then I'm going to add just a little dollop of this blue paint and mix that in with my little metal stir stick. And you want to just make sure you're mixing it really thoroughly. You don't want a clump of paint without any of the Mod Podge, because the Mod Podge is what you need for the glue. And again, like I said, you can use the, I think it's 3M or the tumbler tape or whatever. There's a variety of things that they're called, the adhesive tape, and that definitely makes it quicker. But this is just one that I wanted to do. Like I said, I find these super therapeutic. So once that's all mixed in and I'm happy with that, I'm going to clean off my stick, and then I'm going to grab my paintbrushes and just sort of keep them all handy. Again, I'm not really sure which ones I'm going to be using. It's really going to be dependent upon the little spaces and kind of cricks that I'm working within. So once I'm happy with the ones that I've got, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start putting the paint mixed with Mod Podge on there. So I like to use a soft brush. Some people like to use a bit of a stiffer brush. And there you can see I'm using Hello Sailor from the Cat Glitter Factory. Now, there's a variety of ways that you can go ahead and put the paint onto your tumbler. And I'm going to show you, there's a little bit of, like I'm using a fair bit, but you want to be careful. It's a bit of a fine line between putting too much on and not having enough. So there you can see I've got the white streaks behind. I definitely don't have enough in that area. But if you put it on way too goopy, then it is going to spread out and it's going to contaminate your other areas. So I find pouncing works just a little bit better than doing like a sweeping paint stroke. So I'll show you here kind of doing a paint stroke and what that does. It tends to lift the paint. So I find a pouncing action just helps a little bit better for just better coverage. And then I find I'm less likely to have to go in and do a second coat. And I do know that these tend to be a little bit problematic from that side of the fact that people feel they have to do 2-3 coats sometimes. And this is just what I find helps me. I may only have a couple of areas to touch up. So once I've got the paint on, and I work in small sections because Mod Podge rather dries fairly quick. So once it's on there, I go ahead and put the paint, or the glitter on there. And as you can see, I'm making a tapping motion. You don't want to swipe back and forth like you would with the tumbler tape. This one you want to just tap the glitter in, and I find that just helps it adhere to the Mod Podge a little bit better. And then I'm going to take a nice fluffy brush. You can use a blush brush or whatever. And I'm just going to avoid the freshly wet areas, and I'm just going to go around kind of that perimeter and brush off any fallout, because there's always lots of that. And it just keeps my working surface a little cleaner is all. And it doesn't have to be perfect at this point. You're going to see how we clean it all up after. And this again is why we tend to want to work with our darkest colors first. So I'm just going to continue on in the same manner, doing all of the colors, the blue, the Merlot, the rose gold, I think, and then the final kind of sandy gold is the last one that I use. So here you can, I didn't go super slow on that one, but I just kind of trimmed up that little area where that overlap was kind of there. So you can do that. Now I'm using this Merlot, and I didn't want to use, I don't have a burgundy paint, so I didn't want to use a bright crimson, which was kind of all I had. So I mixed a little bit of black into it and got something that was much more resembling of that Merlot color. So I'm pretty happy with that one there. And then we're just going to carry on in the same fashion. So I tend to work all in one color first and then move to the next color, and I work from my darkest to my lightest. So we're just going to keep going here. So once I'm pretty happy with this, I'm going to go ahead and just double check any spots that need to be redone and brush any excess off, and then we're on to the bottom here. So with the bottom of the tumbler, what you want to do is you want to measure across, and I tend to use that little center dot as my center, and I line the edge to edge, and I can see with this one that I'm looking at about 2.75 inches. And we want full coverage here. So we want to be able to link up with all of those edges around the side so that we don't have kind of like a disjointed bottom, a piece that doesn't look like it's part of the design. You don't have to do the bottom. You could simply do it in a dark contrasting color, or any color for that matter. But I chose to do the bottom here. So I'm going to cut it all out, basically just do exactly like what we did to put the full wrap on there, and I'm just going to weed out the excess and trim off any extra bits that I don't need that will just sort of get in the way of being able to line it up properly onto the bottom here. And then I'm going to put my transfer tape over the top and then apply that to the tumbler. And I'm just using the same kind of transfer tape that I had used before, just that nice supple, I believe it's Contact brand. And Just using a small, it's just the leftover piece from what we used to wrap the entire tumbler. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess here. And you just want to be careful. You obviously don't cut the design itself, but you want to be fairly close around the edge. And this will help you really line it up center onto the tumbler. So I'll set that off to the side, and I'll go ahead and apply the template to the bottom. And this does take a little bit of patience. And I have an astigmatism, so I never see round things properly. So this was a little bit of patience needed on my end. But I felt like it didn't go too bad. And before you push it down, just make sure you're happy with where it is, because it's a lot easier to lift up if you need to, if you haven't already pressed it down. If you press it down, it tends to lift the entire thing. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'll go ahead and smooth it all on there. Take out any of those excess bubbles. And then we'll go ahead and lift the transfer tape up. And I have not sealed this tumbler at all yet, so I'm still trying to be super careful of the glitter that is on there. And then I'm going to just use my template like I did before and start with, again, the darkest color. So I've already weeded that out, and I'm just going to fill in those 3 spots there. So once I've got it all pushed in, and again, you really want to make sure that's adhered down into all those little grooves, otherwise your Mod Podge will get under that and it will contaminate your other colors. So doing this in the exact same manner we did before, we just kind of want to pounce the brush and make sure that we get it right into those little corners. And then filling it all in so that we hopefully don't have to go over it any more than the one time. And we're just going to do this as we did the entire cup. And again, just working in small areas. And here we are onto the very last little bit. And wipe off any excess very gently, and just checking to make sure it's all nice and dry. So once we're all nice and dry, and this is before I go and spray seal it, I'm going to use a old brush, and we're just going to scrape off any of the excess glitter. So just brushing it off into the trash there, and just being gentle, but you also kind of want to get in there and make sure that you are getting all those loose little bits, because those will still come loose and they will contaminate your sections. And that's really what we're trying to avoid here. You can't really mask it with any outlines. There's no outlines going on this tumbler. So once I'm pretty happy with that and I tap off any excess to make sure, we're going to go ahead and we're going to really seal this. And I'm using the Rust-Oleum 2x clear gloss spray, and I believe that I did this about 3 coats before I went into the epoxy here. So I'm using Alumilite's Amazing Clear Cast Plus, and I've got about 30 mils mixed up here for the first coat. Because this is raw glitter, this is really going to soak up the epoxy. So also not too worried about any bubbles on this layer, because it's just going to naturally do that as it seeps into the glitter anyway. And we will be going over this. I did a flood coat, so I waited about 4 hours after this coat and then went ahead and applied a second coat right away. So your second application time may vary depending on the type of epoxy you're using, so just make sure you check with your manufacturer. So once that's on there, we're going to go ahead and torch. And like I said, 4 hours later, I did go in and do a second coat, and then I let that coat stay for about 12 hours before I did anything else. And once it was nice and smooth, I was ready to sand any rough bits and then sand around the top rim of my cup to expose a little bit of stainless steel so that we get a really good seal. And I'm using an 80 grit sanding pad. I just like using these rounds. They work really well for me. I believe I have a lighter one as well there. And you just want to be very careful. Again, I've only got 2 coats on here, so we're not going terribly hard at it because we don't want to expose the stainless steel around the bottom or anywhere else for that matter. So if you don't feel like you have enough epoxy on there, go ahead and put one more coat before you do the sanding. And here I'm just doing the sanding around that top rim so we get a little bit of stainless steel showing, and that way we get a really good seal all the way around the cup. And once we're happy with that, I'm going to take it to the sink, give it a wash with some Dawn dish soap and dry it really well. And then I let it sit for probably a good 20 minutes to make sure that it is very dry. And then we go into our final coats. So this is 20 milliliters of amazing Clear Cast Plus epoxy. And I am just applying that the same as I did before. And then I did the same thing, waited 4 hours, and then I applied a second coat straight away, and then I let that spin and cure for the full 12 hours before I touched it again. And that was all it took for this tumbler. This one is just absolutely beautiful. I have loved this template from the moment I saw it, so I'm glad I took the time to just peacefully work at it. And again, these do take a little bit of time. They are a little bit of a labor of love. There are quicker ways to do it. This is just my preferred way. I will be using a tumbler tape and adhesive tape, double-sided, to show you how you can do these a little bit quicker for sure. So I hope you love this tutorial. All of the links for the products that I've used will be down below in the description box. And if you found this helpful, please give our channel a like and a subscribe, and we will see you again for the next video. Thanks so much for watching.